Welcome back to the deep dive. This is where we take those sources you bring us, really roll up our sleeves and dig at the insights that matter most, trying to cut through the noise for you.
Yeah, get straight to the core of it.
And today we're diving into a story that it starts with something almost mundane, digestive trouble. But believe me, it goes somewhere pretty profound.
It really does. We're looking at an ancient account. It's from texts linked to the Dhammapada, and it's centered on this conversation between the Buddha and King Pasenadi of Kosala.
Right. And our mission today is basically to follow that story. We want to unpack the king's problem, very relatable problem, see the advice he gets, which is surprisingly practical, watch his transformation, and then get to this really key teaching, a verse about the highest things: gain, wealth, relatives, happiness.
We're hoping to pull out some really interesting nuggets and see how this ancient wisdom still clicks today.
Okay, so let's paint the picture. The Buddha's staying at the Jetavana monastery.
And King Pasenadi comes to visit. But it's clear he's not feeling his best. The sources are actually quite specific about it.
Yeah, they really are. It sounds like he had a rough morning after breakfast. He'd eaten this large meal. The text mentions a dua of rice.
Which is a lot, yeah.
A lot of rice, plus curry, other stuff.
And the description of how he felt afterwards, it's pretty vivid. Great discomfort, that's the phrase used, maloka.
Oof.
Yeah. Burdened by the food, feeling tired, sleepy. Actually overcome by sleepiness, it says.
So uncomfortable he couldn't even lie down straight.
Exactly. Restless, sort of rolling around is the image given. He had to actually sit down to talk to the Buddha. He couldn't manage standing or anything else comfortably.
Wow. Okay, so the Buddha sees him like this.
And just asks, why do you look so tired? Haven't you rested? Simple question.
And the king just comes right out with it.
Straight up. I feel this great discomfort after eating. Very honest.
Okay, so the first piece of wisdom right there, it's almost deceptively simple.
It really is. The Buddha just states the obvious connection. Look, this kind of suffering, this discomfort, it comes from eating too much. Plain and simple. Ati bahujana eva dukkho hoti.
The direct result.
The direct result. And he doesn't stop there. He gives this verse with some pretty striking imagery.
Ah, yes, the comparison.
Right. He compares someone who's drowsy, eats a lot, sleeps a lot, rolls around in bed, compares them to a large pig fattened on pig food, sluggishly going back to its sty again and again.
Not exactly flattering, is it?
No, but memorable. Definitely makes the point.
So the immediate takeaway from this first part is
moderation. Eat in moderation. That's the core advice. Pujana nama mataya pujitua vatitati. Because the Buddha says eating moderately leads to happiness, to ease. Matabujino hisuka hoti.
Discomfort from too much, happiness from just enough. Got it.
But then he goes deeper. It's not just avoiding the negative, there's a positive dimension too.
Okay.
He offers a second verse, and this one explains the benefits of mindful, moderate eating.
Ah, so why it's good, not just why overeating is bad.
Precisely. The verse goes something like, for a person always mindful, knowing moderation in the food they've received, ailments become few. Their digestion is slow, preserving life.
Ailments become few. Preserving life, that really shifts it, doesn't it? It's not just about feeling sleepy after lunch.
Exactly. Connects moderation directly to, physical health, fewer illnesses, better digestion, which the text describes as slow, meaning gentle or efficient here, and even a longer life. It's about overall well-being.
So it's a health strategy, fundamentally.
Yes. Elevates it beyond just comfort.
Okay, but here's a part I found really human and practical. The king hears all this, understands it, presumably, but he can't actually memorize the verse. The text says, Rajagato ga nisira nasaki?
Huh. Yeah, it's a great detail, isn't it?
Yeah.
Shows that, even when you get the wisdom, putting it into practice, even just remembering it can be tricky.
Totally relatable. So what's his workaround?
He turns to his nephew, Sudassana, who happens to be standing there, and basically says, you learn it.
Delegate. Okay.
So the nephew learns the verse, and then he asks the Buddha, right, I've got it. What now?
And this is where the Buddha lays out this incredibly specific plan. It sounds almost modern, like a tailored diet plan.
It really does. It's quite ingenious. He tells Sudassana, okay, here's what you do. Recite that second verse, the one about health benefits. Recite it to the king right at the end of his meal.
When?
Just before he takes his last portion.
Asana pitakawe.
That very last mouthful.
Okay, the idea being hearing it right then.
We'll make him pause, reflect on the meaning, atas salaketva, and hopefully discard that final bit of food. Just leave that last bite.
But then comes the really clever part. The Buddha says after he discards it, you, Sudarsana, need to count the grains of rice in that leftover portion. Siddhagankana.
Count the individual grains. Seriously. Seriously. And then for the next meal, you tell the cooks to reduce the total amount of rice they prepare by exactly that many grains. Tate counsel harapesiti.
Wow. That's precision guidance from ancient times. It's not just eat less, it's eat this much less based on data.
Exactly. It's feedback-driven portion control, making the abstract wisdom totally concrete and actionable.
So does it work? Does the nephew do it?
Oh, yeah. The story says he did exactly as instructed. Recited the verse at the end of the king's morning meal, his evening meal, counted the grains, told the cooks, every time.
And the king, was he annoyed by this constant reminder and grain counting?
Quite the opposite, apparently. He appreciated it. He actually rewarded Sudarsana generously, giving him thousands, it says.
Oh, okay. So he was on board.
He was. And over time, the plan worked perfectly. The king naturally adjusted. He eventually settled at eating an amount roughly equivalent to a Nika measure.
Which is much less than the doing he started with.
Significantly less, yes. And the result? He became happy, sukapato, and lean tanosariro ahosi, physically transformed.
So he goes back to the Buddha.
Healthy, happy, yeah. And he explicitly tells the Buddha, now I feel happy. Idani me sukachata.
And this is where it gets broader, right? He doesn't just say, hey, I lost weight, feel great.
No, exactly. He starts listing all these different kinds of happiness he's experiencing now, seemingly flowing from this initial change.
Like what?
Well, first, physical ability. He says, I can now chase down deer and horses. Something impossible for him before.
Okay, so better health, more energy. Makes sense.
Then relationships. He mentions this conflict he used to have with his nephew, Sudarsana.
The grain counter.
The very same. But now, he says, the conflict is over. He's actually given his daughter, Vajira Kumari, to Sudarsana in marriage, plus a village as a gift. The conflict is resolved, vigaho vupasanto. And he says happiness came from this reason too.
Interesting. Resolving conflict brings happiness. What else?
Material gain, surprisingly. He mentions a valuable jewel linked to a King Kusa had been lost from his house.
Oh, no.
But now, just recently, it came back into his hand. Tapi idani hatapata nagata. And again, he says, happiness arose from this reason.
So getting back lost valuables. Another source of joy.
And one more thing also about connection. He says he wanted visasa, like trust or familiarity with the Buddha's followers. So he had a relative's daughter come stay in his house, building that connection. And yes, happiness came from this too.
So let's see. Physical prowess, family harmony, recovered wealth, trusted connections.
It's quite a list. All different flavors of happiness that seemed to blossom after he got his physical health in order by addressing the overeating.
And it's this whole account, this outpouring from the king about all these different sources of his newfound happiness.
Exactly. It's in response to this that the Buddha delivers the main punchline, the core teaching of the whole story, this final, really profound verse.
The one that puts it all in perspective.
Yes. The Buddha hears the king's list and then offers this verse, which basically sets a hierarchy for what is truly the highest or supreme. Health is the highest gain. Contentment is the highest wealth. A trustworthy relative is the highest relative. Nibbāna is the highest happiness.
Okay, let's break that down because the source text doesn't just list them, it explains why each is considered the highest.
It does, yeah. And the explanations are really insightful. Let's take the first line. Health is the highest gain. Uroja parama laba.
Why highest?
The source says palamai here implies highest because it means being free from disease. And the logic is quite stark. For someone who is sick, Rogino, any gains they possess, wealth, power, whatever, are basically like no gains. Alabayeva. You can't really benefit from them.
Right, if you're too ill to enjoy it.
Exactly. But conversely, for a healthy person, arogasa, it's as if all potential gains have already come to them because they have the fundamental capacity to enjoy life and pursue things. Health enables everything else. That's why it's the supreme gain.
That really reframes things. Health isn't just nice to have, it's the ultimate prerequisite gain.
Okay, what about contentment is the highest wealth? Santafi. Contentment is defined simply as being satisfied with what you've received, what you have, whether you're a regular person or a monk or none.
Okay.
And that state of contentment, the source says, is the highest wealth when compared to all other forms of wealth, like money or possessions. So, sesatani paramadere.
Yeah.
It's an internal richness.
So real wealth isn't the size of your bank account, but the size of your satisfaction with what's already there. That's a big one.
Huge. And then a trustworthy relative is the highest relative, visasa paramenti.
This one also felt quite radical.
It is. The explanation challenges conventional ideas about family. It says, look, even if someone is your mother or father, if there's no trust, visasanati, they are essentially like a stranger, anyatakova. But on the flip side, someone you can trust implicitly, even if they have no blood relation, asama sambadopi, that person is the highest, the most excellent relative. Parama utamanyati.
So trust, reliability. That's the real measure of kinship, not just biology.
According to this teaching, yes. Trust is supreme in relationships.
That's incredibly powerful. Okay, and the final line, the culmination. Nibbāna is the highest happiness. Nibbāna paramasukha.
And here, the explanation is simple and absolute. There is no other happiness that is like Nibbāna. Nibbāna siddhisa panasukhan namanati. It stands alone as the ultimate, incomparable happiness.
So if we trace the whole story, it starts with the king's stomachache, right? Very physical, very relatable. Then comes this practical, almost data-driven plan, count the rice, to fix it.
Yeah, the intervention.
Which leads to physical health. And then once he's healthy, he starts experiencing all these other kinds of happiness. He's capable, he solves conflicts, he gets lucky with treasure, he builds trust.
A whole spectrum of improvements.
But then the Buddha steps in with this final verse and says, okay, all that's good, but let's look at what's highest. And he lays out this hierarchy. Health as the top gain, contentment as the top wealth, trust as the top relationship marker, and Nibbāna as the ultimate happiness beyond all others.
It's a beautiful arc, isn't it? It shows how sorting out the physical can open doors, but it also points towards deeper sources of well-being. Contentment, trust, and finally, that ultimate liberation. And the source notes that many people listening to this whole discourse actually attain spiritual fruits, so it clearly resonated.
It really makes you think, we all experience discomfort, maybe from overconsumption like the king, maybe from other things. And we all seek happiness in different ways, feeling physically good, fixing problems, maybe getting that promotion or finding that connection.
Sure, the king's list felt very human.
Exactly. But this story, and especially that final verse, gives us this specific framework, this hierarchy of what this ancient wisdom considers truly highest. Health first, then contentment, then trust, ultimately Nibbāna. So the question it leaves us with, maybe for you to chew on, is this. The story shows the king enjoying many kinds of happiness once his health improved. But the final teaching points beyond those worldly joys. What might it actually mean in practice in your own life to consciously prioritize these highest forms, health, contentment, trust, and maybe even exploring what Nibbāna represents, perhaps valuing them even more than some of the other, more temporary gains or pleasures the king initially celebrated? What would shifting your focus towards those highest things look like day to day? Something to think about.